pentagram.
Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. As such, you please add, follow, and check us out, www.thebestdampodcast.tv. Follow me, Instagram and Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and wherever you're watching from. Make sure to hit that like, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and share this link. Help us to get it out there, that way new people can find this, and make sure to subscribe. Click all on the notifications bell. Check out our tarot videos, our astrology videos, our conspiracy, and our news videos. And tonight, we've got a really interesting one. We're going to be starting the new series called OCCULTED. This is going to be taking a look at the dark arts of the elites. I think one of the reasons I'm really excited to do this series, and this is part one, we're going to have, many parts of this, because there's just so much ground to cover here. One of the reasons I'm really excited is because I feel like not too many content creators get into great depth or detail when it comes to the occult, witchcraft, magic, black magic, hermeticism, Gnosticism, kabbalah, right, and so many other practices, esoteric practices that are actually used by what we would call the elites or the powers that be to control the masses, right, and push the population, push the entire world, at least from an energetic and a conscious standpoint, in the direction that they want them to go. This is used and has been used since the beginning of time to take advantage of other people. One of the main principles, and as we get into the cult, we're going to be talking about vibration and frequency, as well as the four elements and how that incorporates into these spiritual teachings. We're going to be looking at symbolism, the importance of symbols, and how they're attached to energetic frequencies, and how this is used for manifestation and attraction. We're going to be looking at numerology, astrology, alchemy, as well as hermeticism and the esoteric teachings from ancient Egypt, because a lot of what we see now, including Kabbalah, Jewish, and many other forms of mysticism, come out of those two veins, the hermetics or Egypt. That goes into the Golden Dawn, the OTO, Rosicrucians, Knights Templar, Freemasonry. They all have a hint or a flavor of that. And you're going to see that even when we look into philosophy, things like Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Carl Jung. We can go on and on with the different names that all kind of are coming out of the same veins. And a lot of it comes from Eastern mysticism as well. We're going to be taking a look at the lower and the higher, or the greater and the lesser keys. Some of these are known as the keys of Solomon. But anytime you see, the triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down, that's what it's talking about, is your higher nature, your lower nature. This takes you into dualism as well. So we're going to be looking at that. We're also going to be looking at mentalism, metaphysics, and we're going to be looking at attraction, using magnetism and frequency and all this. So, this is going to be an in-depth study into the occult, and it's going to be multiple parts. And I'm hoping, one of my hopes is that you walk away from this with not only a deeper understanding of how it works and it's being used against you in your life, and that it's used through the media, the internet, every bit of technology that we have today, including chemistry and astronomy and all the sciences, derive from the occult, right? They're called the sacred sciences first, right? And these were all spiritual teachings and practices, and they were based on universal principles. And the whole universalism concept is essentially that we are God, right? As opposed to what you hear, you have the exoteric, which is the external understanding, the outside perception, what the outside world is given. And we see this in religion. All of the Saturnian religions, which are the worldly religions, we see an understanding that God is outside of yourself, You have an external savior in a lot of cases, that, a middleman between you and God, right? And that godhood is something that man cannot obtain, right? God is perfect, omnipresent, right? Whatever. And it has a disconnectedness from God. Well, the esoteric and the mystery teachings teach that we are in fact that divine spark, that each and every one of us are a piece of God, and that we have unlimited potential and ability to populate every dimensional aspect of reality, and not only through our thoughts, but our words, our clothes, everything about us and what we choose to co-create within the reality has the ability to repel and to attract things to us. And we can control, manipulate, and influence our reality and our world on a day-to-day basis. We can do it short-term, long-term, and we can do it through a million different variations of tuning into different frequencies and different aspects of the creation and the reality. And we're going to talk about some of the more well-known methods on how this is achieved. First, we're going to look at Kabbalah, then we're going to look at magic, then we're going to dive into a couple of books. Some of my personal favorites, Liber Null and the Psychonauts is going to be one of them. So if you've never read that, I'm telling you, it's a fucking treat, and it'll blow your mind just how deep it is. We're going to be looking at all types of stuff. So I want to say thank you to everybody for joining me. If you're in the chat right now, hit the thumbs up, hit the like. We did go a little bit early tonight's show. I also am going to be reading from a couple of different books throughout this series. Tonight we're going to be looking at the Encyclopedia of Secret Signs and Symbols as we get into the Freemasonry section. So we're going to be pulling from that as well. If you guys want to check out some of this stuff at home, I'll try to leave links in the description after the video is over. So let me say thank you for joining. I am proud to be Canadian. Thank you for joining. Cosmic Blue, Stool Purger, Melanie Gist, Seeking Truth. Thank you guys. I appreciate everybody in the chat for joining, man. Truth Behind the Lie. Make sure to hit that like. Give us a thumbs up if you're in the chat. And like I said, share this out. Share it to your Facebook group or your social media that you choose to use. Make sure to subscribe. And if you want to see the channel keep going, donate, support, or book a personal tarot reading. So here we go. Let's jump into Kabbalah first. We're going to start with Kabbalah. Just a little information. First, we start with the Tree of Life, which is literally parallel or corresponding received tradition, is an esoteric method, discipline, and school of thought that originated in Judaism. A traditional Kabbalist in Judaism is called a Merkabah. Kabbalah's definition varies according to tradition and aims at those following it. From its religious origin as an integral part of Judaism to its later Christian, New Age, and occultist, Western, esoteric, syncretic adaptations. Kabbalah is a set of esoteric teachings meant to explain the relationship between an unchanging, eternal, and mysterious infinity and the mortal and finite universe, or God's creation. Now, while it is heavily used by some denominations, it is not a religious denomination in itself. It forms the foundations of mystical religious interpretation. Kabbalah seeks to define the nature of the universe and the human being, the nature and purpose of existence, and various other ontological questions. It also presents methods to aid understanding of the concepts and thereby attain spiritual realization. Kabbalah originally developed within the realm of Jewish tradition, and Kabbalists often use classical Jewish sources to explain and demonstrate its esoteric teachings. These teachings are held by followers in Judaism to define the inner meaning of both the Hebrew Bible and the traditional rabbinic literature and their formerly concealed transmitted dimension, as well as explain the significance of Jewish religious observances. So, the origin of Jewish mysticism, the Sephiroth and the Shining Ones. Most of you guys will be familiar with Sephiroth. According to the adherents of Kabbalah, the origin of Kabbalah began with the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Bible. According to the Midrash, God created the universe with 10 utterances, or 10 qualities. When read by later generations of Kabbalists, the Torah's description of the creation of the book of Genesis reveals mysteries about the Godhead itself, the true nature of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of life, as well as the interaction of these supernal entities with the serpent, which leads to disaster when they eat the forbidden fruit as recorded in Genesis 2. The Bible provides ample additional material for mythic and mystical speculation. The prophet Ezekiel's visions in particular attracted such speculation, as did Isaiah's temple vision. Jacob's vision of the ladder to heaven is another text providing an example of the mystical experience. Moses' experience with the burning bush and his encounters with God on Mount Sinai are all evidence of mystical events in the Tanakh in the form of the origin of Jewish mystical beliefs. And if you think every religion, especially the Abrahamic religions, but they all have, this meeting with God on a mountain, right? And he's always described as a shining one, a burning bush, right? Even Prometheus, the light bearer, right? We see this always be some of the main things that are seen: Mount Sinai, Mount Olympus, Mount Hermon, right? So, Jewish mystical tradition appealed to the argument of authority based on antiquity. As a result, virtually all work pseudo-graphically claim or are ascribed ancient authorship. Now, the appeal to antiquity has also shaped modern theories of influence in reconstructing the history of Jewish mysticism. The oldest versions of Jewish mysticism have been theorized to extend from the Assyrian theology and mysticism. Dr. Simo Perpola, researcher at the University of Helsinki, made suggestive findings on the matter, particularly concerning the analysis of the Sephirot, noting the general similarity between the Sephirot of the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life of Assyria. And that's one of the beliefs, is that the Assyrians are the original Christians. Now we're going to move on over to magic. Just going to explain this before we jump into the books here. Now, magic has been used, and hopefully, guys, let me know if you guys have sound. You guys can hear me and see me good in the chat. It looks like you guys can. Just let me know if you can hear me and see me good in the chat. Everybody at home, I appreciate it. Alright, magic has been used throughout history as a means to gain power and control one's environment. Early magicians included the alchemists of prior centuries who did more than turn lead into gold. Magic indeed has to do with the nature of reality as a consciousness hologram, and how some people are able to shift the energies within its grid matrix. So you have the Kabbalah, which is these 10 names or these 10 utterances of God, each one of them a representation of a different angel or entity or energy, right, to invoke something into your life or to attract you to something into your life, right? These are they all have lettering, which is a symbol, which is also a representation of an energetic frequency, right, which is characteristic of an archetype, and it's basically got its own dimension of properties that come with that. The name, the look, the feel, the color, the stars, all of that with each and every name, letter, and symbol. Now, magic takes us to the word magi, or Zoroastrian, astrologer priest from ancient Persia. The best known magi are the wise men from the East in the Bible. In English, the term may refer to a shaman, a sorcerer, or a wizard, and its origin of the English words magic and magician. They are part of the myth about Jesus of Nazareth. And many people believe, and there are books out there, that Jesus, in fact, was a mystic, right? It kind of makes sense. There's a lot of depictions you can see with Jesus walking around with a staff or a magic wand. At many, and I'm not saying he was or he wasn't, but there's books about Jesus' childhood and stuff where he went all across the world to the East, studied Buddhism, Hinduism, and all of these things. So, that's really up to you what you believe, but we know that Jesus is an allegory for the mysteries. The story about, being put on the cross, right? Which we'll get into the symbolism of the cross and all that as we go throughout, right? Being pierced 5 times, right? Which is the pentagram, the starfish body, that's the human body, the physical. The 5 senses, dying to his 5 senses, right? His last wound being pierced in the heart and the water coming out, us being made up of water, right? It's also describing elements, and him being resurrected 3 days later. This is astro-theological. It's talking about the astrology of the sun, right? And the solstice as well. So it has multiple meanings. It is showing you how in the stars and in the stories, it is akin to what's playing out within us on an anatomical level, a physical level, a spiritual level, because we're that connected to every plane of existence. So there is a direct correlation and connection. It's the story of us and how we go from dying to our lower sinful nature and being born again into the anointing, or the Christos, which would be the sacred secretion of the third eye. If thine eye be single, then thy whole body be filled with light. The third eye, the mind's eye, right? The kundalini, the dragon being awoken, right? This illumination taking place, and this activation, essentially, of our genetics. That's also, Caduceus and Hermes' staff, the DNA, the spine, which is the rod, right, from the Bible, representing kingship, its power, its authority. These are all different symbolisms for the same thing, and it's really essentially the same process. And this is the process of being activated, but being awakened to the true nature of who you are, awakened to your true your godhood. Essentially, we are the little g gods. Even referring to Psalms, Christ says, "Didn't I say that ye are gods?" Little g gods meaning Elohim, right? We were made in the image of the Elohim, right? Image means a phantom, a projection, an illusion. So those higher angel beings, the smokeless fire beings, right? The angels, if you will, would be our higher spiritual selves. Being governed by astrological entities or energies that we call planets and stars, having their own energetic frequency or variance that has a penetrating effect in the creation or the algorithm of each one of us on a spiritual level, right? And then from the day that we're born, with the numbers that correlate to that, to the colors of our eyes, right? I mean, it is essentially the chemical compound or the algorithm of you, right? And we can study all of this from a frequency standpoint and how we can kind of populate each dimension with ourselves, right? By using mental practices, using vocal practices, using symbols and sigils, right? To tap into that and have other people absorb your energy, right? And this is essentially working on the process of understanding that there is attraction and repulsion to everything magnetically, putting yourself in alignment to attract all of the good things that you want, right, by following, the good feeling, essentially, right? And that's what happens in the media, right, where they're programming you, using certain words over and over and over, because just words in itself are powerful. That is the spell, right? And think about the Tower of Babel when it fell, this united tower that ascended all the way up to the heavens to God. The language was confused, right? Which is, what we speak, we know that the tongue is cursed. It has the power of life and death. That language being confused, meaning, we were at once in harmony with our words, and our spirits were in harmony, and now they're not, right? We have the divided brain that's fighting against itself. That binary code, that fight or flight, that good angel and bad angel on your shoulder, God and the devil, in essence, in one. And we're fighting against that nature each and every day. And it's about understanding the higher and the lower and putting the spirit in the driver's seat and allowing the body and the reality to work for it, So, now magic next takes us to magnetics and the electromagnetic grids that create the illusion of our reality, right? And in a conscious holographic reality, right? Which would be, in essence, like a simulation. Think about it. A phantom, a projection, illusion is a specter. It's an image of something that exists. So the light, which is the spirit, is projecting onto a mirror-like reality an image in sound, right? Using light and sound vibration to create the physical reality. So we have a direct influence from it because sound and light are essentially the same thing. Sound is just light at such a low vibratory state that it begins to create a rumble vibration, right? Sound, right? But light and sound being the components of the reality, making up, and when you look at the different archetypes, the names of the planets, the colors, the shapes, they all have this aligning correlation. That's why they're called the governors, because those 7 colors of the rainbow, which are the covenant, the rainbow with God, right, are like the rulers of this reality. That's why it's the 7 days of the week, right? And each energy is broken down to the 365 days in the year, an entity being responsible for this. And the old paganism, they knew what this was. The polytheists knew what this was. They knew that each thing was made up. I feel like we had this arcane knowledge a long time ago and we've lost it. And that's where we come with this esoteric, disconnected version of it, right? Except for those who understand the mysteries. And the occult just means hidden, right? It's hidden from the masses. It's unseen. It's occulted. Magic is everywhere. Oh, a well-known practice is, magic next takes us to magnetics and the electromagnetic grids that create the illusion of our reality. Magnetics have polarities, positive, negative, right, good and bad, hence duality. North and south poles, pole shifts in the physical and in the conscious, right, which is the pendulum swing. It's polarity, right? And when we look into, and we'll get into it eventually through the Kabbalah, we'll talk about the hermetic principles and the sacred sciences in a video and just break it all down on how it works, rhythm, correspondence, polarity, and, how even, like, you see it in every aspect of our creation, from having sex, right, rhythm, right, like vibration, correspondence, masculine, feminine, the sexes, gender, it's all a part of this reality. One of the more popular oracles of divination is scrying. It's a subjective way of defining abstract images, and we see that abstract as a representation of the lower or the lesser, right, which is the kind of the darker or the carnal. That's why you see art and music and things like that gravitate toward the abstract, because it's about physicality. Magic is everywhere. We incorporate into it everything we do, including religion, meditation, and our everyday lives. Magic is in the moment. Magic is the moment, as all is happening in the now. Time is an illusion. We are an omnipresent, infinite being, right? Eternally reflecting through the echoes of the construct. You can make anything mystical and magical if you believe. It's all about our thoughts. Our thoughts create our reality. Now, magic is the claimed art of altering things, either by supernatural means or through knowledge of occult natural laws unknown to science. Magic has been practiced in all cultures and utilizes ways of understanding, experiencing, and influencing the world somewhat akin to those offered by religion, though it is sometimes regarded as more focused on achieving results than religious worship. Magic is often viewed with suspicion by the wider community and is commonly practiced in isolation and in secrecy. It's because of the persecution. It's because it's looked down upon by society. If you tell people that you practice magic, they think you're evil automatically. They don't understand, right, that it takes such an intense dedication and purity to actually be effective at, magic and spell casting and all of that, right? It takes, you have to be in a clear state mentally, emotionally, physically, and you have to put good, positive intention and sow lots and lots of good seeds, good energy into something to bring back good results. Being a piece of shit only yields shitty things, So usually people that practice are really great people. They're some of the most spiritual people on the earth. They're just incredibly intentional about the way that they practice, whether they're doing vision boards, moon manifestations, prayer, meditation, verbal ritual, right? Or what, sex ritual. It doesn't matter. They're very intentional in the way they go about it, and they try to populate every layer of their reality, the spiritual realm, the mental plane, right, into the physical, and put an impression of their intent or their will onto all the world. That way, their energy is soaking into attracting the things that they want. Now, modern Western magicians generally state magic's primary purpose to be personal spiritual growth. Many see magic ritual purely in psychological terms as a powerful means of autosuggestion and of contacting the unconscious mind. Modern perspectives on the theory of magic broadly follow two views, which also correspond closely to ancient views. The first sees magic as a result of a universal sympathy within the universe, where if something is done here, as a result, happens somewhere else. The other view sees magic as a collaboration with spirits who cause the effect, and that's essentially what it is. Spirit gives, everything originates, right, from light and sound, right? So it's coming out of the quantum, out of the ether, if you will, before it becomes elements. Elements are nature, right? The physical or palpable manifestations of the spirit, right? So it starts in the spiritual realm first and then manifests here, and that goes with everything. Cause and effect. Now, appearing from Aboriginal tribes in Australia and the Maori tribes in New Zealand to rainforest tribes in South America, bush tribes in Africa, and ancient pagan tribal groups in Europe, some forms of shamanic contact with the spirit world seem to be nearly universal in the early development of human communities. And like I said, these spirits or deities are associated or correlated to planets, stars, days, months, you name it, right? They're descriptive deities is what we'll call them, or entities, and they have a ranking system. And this is what we would call demons or daemons, which means a demon is a persona or a mask, right? It's an archetype, an energetic frequency, so it can come as a symbol as well. It can be shown as a symbol, matching an energetic frequency, a word or a sound, matching the energetic frequency, something that you write, right? An energetic frequency, think, and there's a thought associated with it, action associated with it, and it has its own archetype or personality, and that's why it's a demon, right? Because it's a mask, and we can tap into it. We can put on any one of those masks, use those masks. That's what the Temple of Solomon was about, right? Using the demons to build his temple. Right? His temple was a spiritual temple. Magic in ancient Egypt was used for protection against angry deities, jealous ghosts, and foreign demons and sorcerers who were thought to cause illness, accidents, poverty, and infertility. Much of the Babylonian and Egyptian pictorial writing character derived from the same sources. And, if you're putting out negativity, darkness, you create an imbalance where darkness has to be paid, right? So you'll see a lot of magicians try to create a polar opposite imbalance by doing good things. That's why all religions talk about charity and shit like that. Although indigenous magical traditions persist to this day, very early on, some communities transitioned from nomadic to agricultural civilizations, and with this shift, the development of spiritual life mirrored that of civic life, just as tribal elders were consolidated and transformed in kings and bureaucrats, so too were shamans and adepts changed into priests and priestly castes. This shift is by no means nomenclature alone. While the shaman's task was to negotiate between the tribe and the spirit world on behalf of the tribe, as directed by the collective will of the tribe, the priest's role was to transfer instructions from deities to city-state on behalf of the deities, as directed by the will of those deities. The shift represents the first major usurpation of power by distancing magic from those participating in that magic. It's at this stage of development that highly codified and elaborate rituals setting the stage for formal religions began to emerge, such as funeral rites of the Egyptians, sacrifice rituals of the Babylonians, Persians, Aztecs, and Mayans. And, I mean, if you think about it, right, that's where you see the bloodlines and things like that come from. Family crest, right? That's a symbol or sigil for your family. And it has parts making up that symbol or sigil, different animal spirits and all of that. It's your family persona, right? It's a spirit behind that. You know, we all make our mark, if you will, our brand, if you will, right? Taking control of our own agency. And a lot of these more prominent families did that, and as they deepened their knowledge and understanding of the mysteries, they codified it in secret rituals. And, you know, the masses were dumbed down by being taught the esoteric. That way they could be controlled and their energies could be used to benefit, you know, those that were in power. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into Liber Null. And I'm telling you, I've got some good ones. So I just want to show you. Alright, introduction here. And thank you for the super chat, Stool Purger. I really appreciate that. That's very, very, very kind of you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Everybody in that chat, hit the thumbs up too. Alright, introduction. The magic of the IoT is an intensely practical, personal, experimental art. Two major themes run through this book. That altered states of consciousness are the key to unlocking one's magical abilities, and that these abilities can be developed without any symbolic system except reality itself. The magical style of thinking is explored with chapters on the alternative belief and the alphabet of desire. A natural inclination toward the darker side of magic is as good a point as any from which to begin the ultimate quest. And half this book is devoted to the black arts. Independently of ancient dusty books of mystification, the vital elements of many traditions conspire here to create a living art. The Illuminates of Thanateros are the magical heirs to the OCCULTED and the AA. This book, written originally as a source book for the IoT, is now being released for those who wish to work alone and for those seeking admission to the order. Although the initiate is referred to as he throughout, the reader should understand that this is merely in keeping with the traditional style of magical texts of this type, and that this course of study by no means excludes women. Here we go. And it's going to show you the survival of the magical tradition, right? How it started in shamanism, right, with the Aboriginal, and then you see it, the Egyptian Babylonians, the Tantra, Taoism, Gnosticism, Sufism, Knights Templar, Hermetic, Alchemy, Medieval Goetia, Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, and John Dee, the Bavarian Illuminati, the Ordo Templi Orientis, Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn, and Crowley, OCCULTED, also Spare, the IoT, witchcraft, and sorcery. Right? All of them spinning off of the other. The order and the quest. The secrets of magic are universal and of such a practical, physical nature as to defy simple explanation. Those beings who realize and practice such secrets are said to have achieved mastership. Masters will, at various points in history, inspire adepts to create magic, mystic, religious, or even secular orders to bring others to mastership. Such orders have at certain times openly called themselves the Illuminati. At other times, secrecy has seemed more prudent. The mysteries can only be preserved by constant revelation. In this, the IoT continues, a tradition perhaps 7,000 years old. Yet the order in the outer has no history, although it is constituted as a satrap of the Illuminati. And I just want you to know, Illuminati, it's the illuminated, right? It's those who are able to communicate at an enlightened, higher frequency and awareness, right? Those who move behind the shadows. And they are the puppet masters because they're able to populate all of the dimensional realms. In the order with no past, there is nowhere, and you can read any bit of their text, and there's dual meanings, right? There's always the exoteric, external, lower meaning and message, and there's always something that's higher. And if you're at a high state of frequency or consciousness, you can communicate on that level with other consciousness. In the order with no past, there is nowhere to conceal the future from the present. It takes its name from the gods of sex, Eros, and death, Thanatos. Apart from being humanity's two greatest obsessions and motivating forces, sex and death represent the positive and negative methods of attaining magical consciousness. Illumination refers to the inspiration, enlightenment, and liberation resulting from success with these methods. The specific purpose for which the IoT is constituted is to help determining in what form the as yet embryonic fifth aeon will manifest. Its task, although historic, consists in disseminating magical knowledge to individuals. For at no time since the first aeon has humanity stood in such need of these abilities to see its way forward. There is no formal hierarchy in the IoT. There is a division of activity depending on ability as it develops. Students strengthen their magical will against the strongest possible adversary, their own minds. They explore the possibility of changing themselves at will and explore their own occult abilities in dream and magical activity. Initiates familiarize themselves with all forms of occult attainment and seek to perfect themselves in some particular form of magic. They should also find others capable of aspiring to the order and offer them help. Adepts seek perfection in all aspects of personal magic, power, wisdom, and liberation. Masters seek to realize the aims of the order by whatever forms of action or non-action they deem appropriate. Diagram 1 is an exposition of the survival of magical traditions from the first aeon to the fifth. And that's a diagram that we've shown. Now, here we go. This course is an exercise in the disciplines of magical trance, a form of mind control having similarities to yoga, personal metamorphosis, and the basic techniques of magic. Success with these techniques is a prerequisite for any real progress with the initiate 3-degree syllabus, right? 3 degrees, 33, right? A magical diary is the magician's most essential and powerful tool, which is called your Book of Shadows, right? Essentially, it's a journal, right? It's writing down all of your dreams. It's writing down all your successes and failures. It's documenting your rituals. Matter of fact, I do moon manifestations, right? Every full and new moon, I write things down. I write down things when I'm studying stuff, whether it's astrology notes or it's, alchemy notes, right? I write things down. People that have dreams, I write down dreams. I know others that dream every night and they write them down, right? This is your Book of Shadows. And you'll see based on, what you've done, what works for you. And someone else can read it and learn from it as well. A magical diary is a magician's most essential and powerful tool. It should be large enough to allow a full page for each day. Students should record the time, duration, and degree of success of any practice undertaken. They should make notes about environmental factors conducive or otherwise to the work. Those wishing to notify the order of their intention to begin the work are invited to do so via the publisher. Mind control. And I just want to say, a lot of the things you see now for mental health and psychology, like journaling, like vision boards, things like that, right? They are forms of of magic, right? In very effective forms. To be able to kind of, it's all about reorganizing your thoughts, right? And you see this too, 12-step programs, all these different thinking programs are teaching you how to do it too. Taking a fearless moral inventory, AA, right? Like NA, those are the same thing. It's about organizing your thoughts, your emotions, right? Becoming incredibly intentional. Mind control. To work magic effectively, the ability to concentrate the attention must be built up until the mind can enter a trance-like condition. This is accomplished in a number of stages. Absolute motionless of the body, regulation of the breathing, stopping of thoughts, concentration on sound, concentration on objects, and concentration on mental images. And if you've ever practiced astral projection, this is a great way to be able to get control of the old mind here, guys. Right? To become a true mentalist and have power over thoughts. It's important to go completely motionless, thoughtless, right? But allow the mind to stay awake as the brain enters into, that REM state, kind of tapping you in. You can then start to be very intentional about what you see, what you create. This is, you can even picture yourself leaving out of your body, your light body, right? There's many guided meditations on astral projection, but this is a good practice to be able to do it. Being motionless, your breathing, very intentional about your breathing. Breathing is always very important, and not thinking, right? Clearing your mind. The magical trance is the science and art of causing the change to occur in conformity with will. The will can only become magically effective when the mind is focused on not interfering with the will. And one of the ways they do this to the masses is they evoke emotional responses. They use highly charged words, right? Trigger words. Get it? Trigger. They're pulling a trigger, right? And these words are words that are charged, and they evoke they have a negative connotation, right? Like the word racist or something like that. They use this language to evoke an emotional response from you. Because when you get into your feels, get into your emotions, right, your critical thinking skills turn off, right? And emotions go into overdrive, and you start making dumb decisions. You can be swayed. Another reason that the psychological shit is so huge now is because if they can get you on drugs like psychotropics, they put you in a limbo, a state between conscious and unconscious, and it's the most suggestive state of the mind. So then when you're watching television, which we know repetition is the number one method of mind control, repeating something until it becomes true, or just repeating something to you. This is why you see commercials on loop all day long, the same talking points being repeated, right? These are all forms of mind control and the power of suggestion, right? The suggestions being used to socially engineer us into a state of being, right? A state of existence, into different beliefs, because whatever we believe becomes our reality. Okay? And we begin to attract more of that into our lives. We solidify that reality the more we believe it. The mind must first discipline itself to focus its entire attention on some meaningless phenomena. If an attempt is made to focus on some form of desire, the effect is short-circuited by lust of result. So you're always lusting after things, right? They keep you constantly lusting after things, never feeling good enough, so you can't actually manifest or gain ground and attract the things that you truly want and desire. Egotistical identification, fear of failure, and the reciprocal desire not to achieve desire arising from our dual nature destroy the result, right? It's null and void. It marks itself out. Therefore, when selecting topics for concentration, choose subjects of no spiritual, egotistical, intellectual, emotional, or useful significance. Meaningless things. And they're saying too, right, it's your ego that's driving you, in essence, for the most part, day by day, to make the decisions you make. Right, and because of that, it's burdening you on the spiritual end, right? You're not putting no spiritual energy. Everything is self-absorbed, self-focused, so you can't connect to anything outside of self to make anything really happen. Metamorphosis, a transmutation of the mind to magical consciousness, has often been called the great work. It has far-reaching purpose, leading eventually to the discovery of the true will. Even a slight ability to change oneself is more valuable than any power over the external universe. Metamorphosis is an exercise in willed restructuring of the mind. All attempts to reorganize the mind involve a duality between conditions as they are and the preferred condition. Thus, it is impossible to cultivate any virtue like spontaneity, joy, pious pride, grace, or omnipotence without involving oneself in more conventionality, sorrow, guilt, sin, and impotence in the process. Religions are founded on the fallacy that one can or ought to have one without the other. High magic recognizes the dualistic condition but does not care whether life is bittersweet or sweet and sour. Rather, it seeks to achieve any arbitrary perceptual perspective at will. Any state of mind might arbitrarily be chosen as an objective for transmutation. But there is a specific virtue to the ones given. The first is an antidote to the imbalance and possible madness of the magical trance. The second is a specific against obsession with the magical practices. In the third section, they are laughter, non-attachment, or disinterest. Attaining these states of mind is accomplished by a process of ongoing meditation. One tries to enter the spirit of the condition whenever possible and to think about the desired result at other times. By this method, a strong new mental habit can be established. Consider laughter the highest emotion. It can contain any of the others from ecstasy to grief. It has no opposite. Crying is merely an underdeveloped form of it which cleanses the eyes and summons assistance to infants. Laughter is the only tenable attitude in a universe which a joke is played upon itself. The trick is to see that the joke is played out even in the neutral and ghastly events which surround one. It is not for us to question the universe's apparent lack of taste. Seek the emotion of laughter in what delights and amuses. Seek it in whatever is neutral or meaningless. Seek it even in what is horrific and revolting, though it may be forced at first. One can learn to smile inwardly at all things. Non-attachment or non-interest. And this is where we get into like the Luciferianism, the universalism, right? We're going to get into that in the Baphomet, right? Being neutral in all things, right? Not allowing yourself to be swayed to or fro or to be polarized towards one side of the other. To remain in the creator's seat, right? Non-attachment or non-interest best describes a magical condition of acting without lust of result. It is very difficult for humans to decide on something and then to do it purely for its own sake. Yet it is precisely this ability which is required to execute magical acts. Only single-pointed awareness will do. Attachment is to be understood both in the positive and negative sense, for an aversion is its other face. Attachment to any attribute of oneself, one's personality, one's ambitions, one's relationships, or sensory experiences, or equally aversion to any of these will prove limiting. It's, the attachment to ourself that prohibits us or prevents us from actually executing when it comes to magic, right? Because we have preconceived notions and desires, and we're basing our magic on an expectation of some desire that we have for some result or outcome. It's being not attached and allowing it to flow naturally and be what it is that actually makes it more powerful. On the other hand, it is fatal to lose interest in these things, for they are one's symbolic system or magical reality. Rather, one is attempting to touch the sensitive parts of one's reality more lightly in order to deny the spoiling hand of grasping desire and boredom. Thereby, one may gain enough freedom to act magically. In addition to these two meditations, there is a third, more active form of metamorphosis, and this involves one's everyday habits. However innocuous they might seem, habits and thought, word, and deed are the anchor of the personality. The magician aims to pull up that anchor and cast himself free on the sea of chaos. To proceed, select any minor habit at random and delete it from your behavior. At the same time, adopt any new habit at random. The choices should not involve anything of spiritual, egocentric, or emotional significance, nor should you select anything with any possibility of failure. By persisting with such simple beginnings, you become capable of virtually anything. All works of metamorphosis should be committed to the magical diary. Now, it's saying too that it's about self-mastery in essence, right? The ability to take on something and to work on it without an attachment to the ego or anything like that, and to be neutral in the practice to allow clarity to take place and until you reach points of perfection. Magic success in this part of the syllabus is dependent on some degree of mastery of the magical trances and metamorphosis. This magical instruction involves 3 techniques: ritual, sigils, and dreaming. In addition, the magician should make himself familiar with at least one system of divination: cards, crystals, gazing, rune sticks, pendulum, or divining rod. The methods are endless in each one, right? Whether you're, and I'm getting ready to do a tarot course, actually. I'm going to be posting that in the next week or so. For people who are interested in purchasing it, it's going to teach you how to do tarot. It's going to be Tarot 101, 201, 301. It's going to be a few different courses on how to read tarot. But tarot is one form of divination. Crystals, working with crystals, is another. Runes. Pendulums or rods also, and what they do is to allow you to pick up on energetic frequencies through these objects to divine the future or divine answers to questions you may have. Whatever symbolic system or instruments are used, they are not only to provide a receptacle or an amplifier for inner abilities. No divinatory system should involve too much randomness. Astrology is not recommended, and I don't feel like astrology is random, to be honest, but astrology is based on energies and archetypes as well of the planets and their alignments, as opposed to when you were born and where they are in your chart at the time. Ritual is a combination of the use of talismanic weapons, gesture, visualized sigils, word spells, and magical trance. Before proceeding with sigils or dreaming, it's essential to develop an effective banishing ritual. A well-constructed banishing ritual has the following effects. It prepares a magician more rapidly for magical concentration than any other trance exercises alone. It enables a magician to resist obsession if problems are encountered with dream experiences or with sigils becoming conscious. It also protects a magician from any hostile occult influences which may assail him. Now, banishing is just a cleansing, right? It's a removal of old or negative energy. You see this also take place when people use sage or smudging, right? Going into the corners or the angles, because that's where the light last enters into a room. It holds darkness or matter or negative energy, distorted energy in corners, angles, and clearing through, doorways, windows, things like that, and also cleaning oneself. And you'll see, different prayers being used as well. But this is to cleanse energy, essentially any old energy that's hanging on, demonic or archonic entities that are, vampiric and that feed off of, pain and feed off of, negativity. That could be attached to you in some way. We could, by not understanding what symbols we're working with, by not understanding what words we're saying, just as simple as cussing and putting yourself down. You're cursing yourself, saying I'm always stupid, or damning yourself, right? You're bringing curses down onto yourself. You're speaking curses down onto yourself. And a lot of times, a lot of the music we listen to is ritual oriented in some way, shape, or form. Books that we read, religious practices especially, and if you're not understanding what you're truly doing, you don't know exactly what you're attracting to or what you're connecting to energetically, right, on an energetic level. So you could be bringing some really nasty shit into your world and not even be aware of it. So it's important to always cleanse yourself. To develop a banishing ritual, first acquire a magical weapon, a sword, a dagger, a wand, or perhaps a large ring. A lot of people use things like selenite. I have a crystal wand as well. Some people, witch hazel, just different things. Right? I have daggers too. Most of them for just ritual purposes. They're symbolic. The instrument should be something which is impressive to the mind and should also represent the aspirations of the magician. So depending on what you're doing, if you're using a wand as in tarot cards, right? A wand for tarot, a dagger for, some other type, an offensive or an aggressive ritual, the sword. And the advantages, and the instrument should be something which is impressive to the mind. It's going to have an impact to the mind because we correlate thoughts to certain energies as well. It should also represent the intentions, right? The advantages of hand forging one's own instruments or discovering them in some strange way cannot be overemphasized, right? Allowing it to come to you, having it gifted to you a lot of times, or finding it in a weird place, giving it some type of sentimental or mystical meaning. The banishing ritual should contain the following elements as a minimum. First, the magician describes a barrier about himself with the magical weapon, like drawing a circle around yourself, right? Because the curves. Angles, right? Harness darkness, negativity. Curves, light. Right? The barrier is also strongly visualized. Three-dimensional figures are preferable. And whenever we're, figures, we're making symbols, sigils, right? Second, the magician forces his will on a visualized image, focusing your thoughts onto something, using your mind's eye, using your physical eyes to look or speak into something, right? You can offer herbs or, flowers or things like that, incense to attract certain energies or archetypes. Do it on specific days of the week, hours of the day, correlating to specific numbers and planets in the sky, and do it according to different celestial alignments as well, different moons for different rituals also. For example, the image of the magical weapon or his imaginary third eye, perhaps a ball of light inside his own head, and you can see here, right? These are different forms. A sound concentration may alternatively be used, like hum, right? Sound, singing bowls, things like that. Third, the magical barrier is reinforced with the power symbol drawn with the magical weapon. The traditional five-pointed star, the pentagram, which is Phi, right? Phi. It's a starfish body, or pentagram can be used for the eight-pointed star of chaos, oct, right? Or any other form. Words of power may also be used. Power words. We talked about kabbalah, right? The 10 utterances. The magician aspires to the infinite void by a brief but determined effort to stop thinking, clearing the mind. Sigils. The magician may require something which he is unable to obtain through normal channels. It is sometimes possible to bring about the required coincidence by direct intervention of the will, provided that this does not put too great a strain on the universe. The mere act of wanting is rarely effective, so it doesn't help to just want something. It's like you need to act like you already have it, right? You have to be thinking, acting as if. And you have to already be on the level or frequency to meet what you're trying to attract. The mere act of wanting is rarely effective, but this, as the will becomes involved in a dialogue with the mind. This dilutes magical ability in many ways. The desire becomes part of the ego complex. The mind becomes anxious of failure, and the will to not fulfill desire arises to reduce fear of failure. Soon the original desire is a mass of conflicting ideas. Often the wished for result arises only when it's been forgotten. The last fact is the key to sigils in most forms of magic spells. Sigils work because they stimulate the will to work subconsciously, bypassing the mind. So they're going around the mind, right? Subconsciously through sigils, because they hold power and tension. You can create what's called servitors, right, where you draw a symbol or a sigil on a piece of paper and create a thought, a storyline, an archetype for it. Focus your intention. specific days of the week for the power or the frequency you're trying to use, right? Thor, Thursdays, thunder, lightning, whatever, right? And you're trying to use fire or energy, electricity within it. Tell yourself a story about it and picture it growing in your mind, right? You're literally creating something with your mind's eye, starting as a thought and taking it and transferring it into physical paper, into the ether, speaking it out loud, right? Giving it attributes and everything. They work because they stimulate and they have a shortcut to the subconscious. So you're going straight to manifestation, right? And you're at the energetic frequency where you believe and know. So you're already there, right? Where you can meet that frequency. There are 3 parts of the operation of a sigil. The sigil is constructed. The sigil is lost to the mind. The sigil is charged. Okay? And you charge a pendulum. You charge tarot cards. You charge crystals. Put them in your fucking pocket, sleeping with those motherfuckers, right? Speaking to them, you do it with plants and herbs and everything. This is how you charge shit. You pray over it, holy water, whatever, right? The smoke of incense. The aim is to produce a glyph of desire. Word method. I wish to obtain the Necronomicon. Eliminate repeated letters, right? This is one method, through words. Writing it out, eliminating the repeated letters. IWSH to ban Ikram. Right? I wish to ban Ikram. Letters rearranged to give pictorial sigil. Then taking these very same fucking letters, rearranging them to create a sigil. Do you see what I mean? Okay, here. We'll give an example. I wish to fall in love, right? You would go, eliminate all the repeated letters of I wish to fall in love, then take those letters, combine them on a piece of paper and rearrange them to make them a sigil or a symbol. How about that? Pictorial method to restrain an adversary. A lot of times I will do the same thing. I'll draw a stick man or something that's akin to a person. They have a marking that my mind associates to them. I might make them as a drop of energy, whatever, right? And adding chains on them or, to bind them, okay? There you go. This is the same thing. Mantrical spell method. I want to meet a succubus. I don't want to say that. But rearranging the letters, right? I want to meet, knocking out the repeated letters. See? Iwa, mba, right? The Finnish mantra. Saying the mantra. Hawi, yeah, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to do that. Figure 2, creating a sigil by the word method. We talked about scratching out the writing out, scratching out the repeated letters, rearranging the letters into a sigil, making a sigil out of it. The pictorial method, drawing out the picture in picture form, and the mantrical method of scratching out the repeated letters when you write it out and then saying it as a mantra, right? Now, it's stylized so as not to immediately suggest desire. It is necessary to use complex symbol systems, and these are complex symbol systems. And I'm telling you what, you motherfuckers better not take this and go try to curse somebody or fuck somebody over. Like, seriously, remember, what you reap, you will sow. So when you put bad juju on somebody, you'll get double back, right? Why? Because not only are you harming them, but you're harming yourself too, right? You're connected. So every time you harm another person, it's also harming you. You're the same. It's the principle of oneness, right? So if you want to you need to create good things. Doing good things creates a karmic imbalance of good. Then you can start to focus your manifestations, your mantras, your journals, your sigils, all of the different magical things, your moon manifestations, everything, your prayer, your meditation, vision boards on beautiful, good, positive things and goals that you set for your life, from very small, realistic goals to outlandish goals, times 10 goals, right? And you can practice using all different types of these methods, from numerology to sacred geometry to being at different landlines and saying certain things associated to it if you want to. But remember, attacking someone, you're not allowed to do it unless it's defending yourself. You're allowed to defend yourself, but that's it. And when you harm someone else, you're also harming yourself, so you'll get that back double. So you have to create double the karma in order to, create that karmic imbalance of good. Now, Figure 2 shows how sigils may be constructed from words, images, and sounds. The subject matter of these spells is arbitrary and not recommended. To successfully lose the sigil, both the sigil form and the associated desire must be banished from normal waking consciousness. So lose the sigil. Banish it from your consciousness. Forget about it. The magician strives against any manifestation of either by force, turning of his attention to other matters. Focusing your attention on something else. It's redirecting your energy. Sometimes the sigil may be burnt, buried, or cast into an ocean. Right? Water, air, fire, right? Different elements, okay? It is possible to lose a word spell by constant repetition, as this eventually empties the mind of the associated desire. The sigil is charged at moments when the mind has achieved quiescence through magical trance, or when high emotionality paralyzes its normal functioning. At these times, the sigil is concentrated upon either as a mental image, a mantra, or a drawn form, right? So charging it through these methods, right? Sleeping with it under your pillow. Have it in your pockets when you walk around. Thinking about it, saying it over and over and over, writing it out over and over and over. You're charging it up, right? Having other people see it, showing it to other people, post it on your fucking social media, put it in a YouTube video, whatever. The more they see it, the more energy, the more focused, the more powerful it becomes, right? Okay, and that's why you see artists and musicians and shit doing all this stuff and this stuff, because they're trying to bring attention to that. They're connecting to an energetic frequency of being illuminated, having power over their creation. Now, at these times, the sigil is concentrated upon either as mental, mantra, or drawn. Some of these times when sigils may be charged as follows during magical trance. The moment of orgasm. Orgasm is the power of life. It's life energy. When we have an orgasm, that's when creation, masculine, feminine, right? That's why it's powerful. The air is literally charged. That's why in sexual rituals, that's what happens. You light candles and have herbs and offerings. You take a ritual bath for cleansing. You have sex. And then after you have sex and orgasm is reached, the air is charged. You speak it into existence. Have it written around you. Do it. Take the fluids from it. Right? There's many ways to do this. Okay? Or great elation. Times of great fear. And we've heard of this too. The adrenochrome shit with the elites torturing people. Great fear, anger, or embarrassment. Embarrassment rituals. Will Smith slapping the fuck out of Chris Rock. That's an embarrassment ritual. That's a powerful, powerful emotions. Right? Emotions is energy and motion. Energetic motion. Emotion. It's us giving off energy. It's energy and motion. It's coming from a thought to an energy. That's why you can feel it. It's palpable. You feel the shift in a room, right? That's why attitudes are contagious. Alternatively, when another strong desire arises, this desire is sacrificed or forgotten, and the sigil is concentrated on instead. After holding the sigil in the mind for as long as possible, it's wise to banish it by evoking laughter. A record should be kept of all work with sigils, but not in such a way to cause conscious deliberation over the sigilized desire. How about that? How about that? Right? When you think about it too, like, I don't know, and this is why it's so important to see the same words which have correlating numeric codes, like to gematria and numerology in the headlines of the news media, right? All of the companies have similar logos, right? Which a logos, right? Like the spiritual logos is a persona, a mask, it's a sigil, it's a symbol, right? And they're connected to a certain energetic frequency, which has a certain archetype, and they're attracting a certain energy. They're putting out a certain energy. The initiate syllabus, 3 degrees. The magic art may be subdivided in many ways by the ethical tone of the intent, by the moralistic qualities of the effects, into high and low, and so on. The division favored here is more temperamental. White magic leans more towards the acquisition of wisdom and a general feeling of faith in the universe. The black form is concerned more with the acquisition of power and is reflective of a basic faith in oneself. The end results are likely to be not dissimilar, for the paths meet in a way impossible to describe. Initiates are at liberty to work with material from either or both. The so-called middle way, or path of knowledge, consisting of the acquisition of second-hand ideas, is an excuse to do neither and leads nowhere. How about that? I wonder how many people would agree or disagree with that, honestly. How many people would agree or disagree with that? Sounds like sex magic. Watch out, Super Bowl. Yeah, Super Bowl was one of the most powerful times for magical rituals, guys. Manifestation. To me, sex with someone you love is sex magic. Tantric and euphoric. Your tantra, which people correlate to sex, is your tantra is your own magical practice, your own kundalini practice, right? So my tantra is different than yours. And it's not just about the way I have sex or my sexual energy. It's about my energy as a whole, my practice as a whole. So my practice, my tantra, will be different than your tantra. All of ours is different. And if you want to learn my tantra, my method, right, then you follow my teachings, right? My methods. If I say, well, I start by doing this, I start by working with the mind first, weeding out negative thoughts, brainwashing myself into positivity, right, into clarity, clear consciousness, intentionality. Then I worked my foundation of my emotions to purge myself of negative emotions and negative experiences going back in my past and where all the traumas were created, healing the inner child, healing the spiritual wounds, clearing contracts, soul contracts, growing and learning from each and every experience and accepting everything as is. And then I've used every study or principle of magic to kind of incorporate my own belief system. And I do, like I said, I practice moon manifestations. I do vision boards, journaling, right? Mantras, all of this. I do all of this, meditation, prayer. And so I'm very intentional. And I even put it out to the public, right? The things that I want. And I want to be happy. I want to have a loving life with loving family and loving people in it, and I think a lot of people do, and it's like, that's what I mean. Each one of us have our own tantra, our own thought as to how life is supposed to go in our own practice, and mine isn't right and yours is wrong, or yours isn't right and mine is wrong. It's what works for you and what works for me, and if you like what works for me, then you can do what I do, and it's like, I incorporate different forms of divination as well. I use pendulums, tarot, astrology. Purging is very healing. Yes, it is. It pushes you to higher thought and pattern. Well, and it's because of the different polarities. When you go down to the depths of your soul, it's like a slingshot, right? You're pulling back that rubber band. You're going down below that middle way, right? Down below that equator, if you will. Right, to the depths of your soul. And as you're down there, that weight's lifted and it slingshots you back up. So you get higher each time you go deep. And these are ego deaths. Each time you're dying to a different part of your ego. Now, duality describes humans' usual condition. Happiness exists only because of misery, pain because of comfort, good because of evil, yang because of yin, black because of white, birth because of death, existence because of non-existence. All phenomena must be prepared or paired, as the senses are only equipped to perceive differences. The thinking mind has a property of splitting everything it encounters into two, as it is a dualistic thing itself. And now we see Phi, which is 5, or the pentagram, right? You guys are probably familiar with this, right? Liberation, divination, enchantment, gnosis, which is knowledge, knowing, invocation, evocation, right? The schema of Liber Lux. And we see Baphomet, the deity allegedly worshipped by the Knights Templar, the cross, right? The balance there. That subsequently became incorporated into various occult and Western esoteric traditions. The name Baphomet appeared in trial transcripts from the Inquisition of the Knights Templar starting in 1307. And it first came into popular usage in the 19th century during debate and speculation on the reasons for the suppression of the Templar order. Baphomet, the symbol of balance in various occult and mystical traditions, the origin of which some occultists have attempted to link with the Gnostics and Templars, although occasionally purported to be deity or demon. Since 1856, the name Baphomet has been associated with the Sabbatic goat. Images drawn by Eliphas Levi, composed of binary elements representing the symbolization of the equilibrium of opposites. Half human, half animal, male and female, good and evil, etc. Levi's intention was to symbolize this concept of balance, with Baphomet representing the goal of perfect social order. Not just Baphomet, Lucifer. Right? Lucifer, one of various figures in folklore associated with the planet Venus, the Venusian. The entity's name was subsequently absorbed into Christianity as a name for the devil. Modern scholarship generally translates the term into the relevant Bible passage, Isaiah 14:12, where the Greek Septuagint reads as morning star or shining one, like the shining ones of the Kabbalah, rather than a proper noun. Lucifer, as found in the Latin Vulgate. As a name for the devil, Christian theology, the more common meaning in English, Lucifer, is a rendering of the Hebrew word Hallel. In Isaiah, given the King James Version of the Bible, the translators of the version took the word from the Latin Vulgate by Latin word Lucifer, meaning morning star, planet Venus, or adjective light-bringing. As a name for the planet in its morning aspect, Lucifer the Lightbringer is a proper noun and is capitalized in English. In Greco-Roman civilization, it was often personified and considered a god. In some versions, considered the son of Aurora, or the son of the dawn, and similar name used by the Roman poet Catullus for the planet in its evening aspect, Noctifer, or Nox, Nightbringer. And in Roman folklore, Lucifer, Lightbringer, was the name of the planet Venus, personified as a male figure bearing a torch, right? Having a torch, the light of Prometheus. Lucifer was said to be the fabled son of Aurora and Cephalus, and the father of Ceyx, and he presented the poetry as heralding the dawn. Lucifer's mother Aurora was cognate to the Vedic goddess Ushas, Lithuanian goddess Osrine, and Greek Eos, all three of whom were also goddesses of the dawn. All four considered derivatives of the Proto-Indo-European stem, meaning osos or dawn, a stem that also gave to Proto-Germanic austro or Old Germanic ostara. Right? Astro, Ostara, star, eastern star. The agreement leads to the reconstruction of the Proto-Indo-European dawn goddess. Hence, the Sanskrit, Hindi, Malayan word Ushas, or dawn, is the root of the Germanic word ost, and the equivalent to east, Easter, ost, right? And it should also be noted that Austria, or Ostrich in Germany, means Eastern Kingdom, United Kingdom, right? The motif of heavenly beings striving from the highest seat of heaven only to be cast down to the underworld has its origins in the motions of the planet Venus, known as the morning star. The Sumerian goddess Inanna, or Babylonian Ishtar, is associated with the planet Venus, and Inanna's actions in several of her myths, including Inanna and Shikatuda, and Inanna's descent into the underworld, appear to parallel the motion of Venus as it progresses through the synodic cycle, Similar theme and present is the Babylonian myth of Etana. The Jewish encyclopedia comments, the brilliancy of the morning star, which eclipses all other stars, but is not seen during the night, may easily have given rise to such a myth as was told with Etana and Zu. He was led by his pride to strive for the highest seat among the star gods on the northern mount of the gods, but was hurled down by the supreme ruler of the Babylonian Olympus. And the fall from heaven motif also parallels in the Canaanite mythology, the ancient Canaanite religion, right? Canaan, canine, dog star, underdog, right? The wolves howling at the moon, the wolf in sheep's clothing. We can go on and on about this and all the connections to Lucifer, right? And Luciferianism meaning believing you're your own God, right? Satanism, you're your own God, right? And that we're all a piece of the divine. All a piece of the divine. So, we're going to go back over here real fast before we jump into a new book. Now, there is a part of man which is of a singular nature. Although the mind is unable to perceive it as much, man considers himself a center of will and a center of perception. Will and perception are not separate, but only appear so the mind, the unity which appears to the mind to exert the twin functions of will and perception, is called Kia, right, or Ka, by magicians. Sometimes it's called the spirit or soul or life force instead. Kia cannot be experienced directly because it is the basis of consciousness or experience, and it has no fixed qualities which the mind can latch onto. Kia is the consciousness. It is the elusive I, which confers self-awareness but does not seem to consist of anything itself. Kia can sometimes be felt as ecstasy or inspiration, but it is deeply buried in the dualistic mind. It is mostly trapped in the aimless wanderings of thought and in an identification with experience and in that cluster of opinions about ourselves called ego. Magic is concerned with giving the Kia more freedom and flexibility and with providing means by which it can manifest its occult power. Kia is capable of occult power because it's a fragment of the great life force of the universe. It's a fragment of God, meaning it is the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, right? The Vesica Pisces. It is that infinite, recurring piece, fragment, fractal. It's electricity, it's energy, it's a divine spark, it's fire. It's fucking chaos, you know? Now, a thing is said to exist and exert certain properties. Being and doing. This calls for the concepts of cause and effect or causality. Every phenomenon is seen to be caused by some previous thing. However, this description cannot explain how everything exists in the first place or even how one thing finally causes another. Obviously, things have originated and do continue to make each other happen. The thing responsible for the origin and continued action of events is called chaos by magicians. It could as well be called God or Tao. But the name chaos is virtually meaningless and free from the childish anthropomorphic ideas of religion. And if you ever study the Tao, right, you know, it's the id, right? It's the id. It's what we call God or spirit. Chaos is also the force by which adds increasing complexity to the universe by spawning structures which were not inherent in its component parts. It's the force which has caused life to evolve itself out of dust, and is currently most concentratedly manifest in the human life force, or Kia, where it is a source of consciousness. Kia is but a small fragment of the great life force of the universe, which contains the twin impulses to immerse itself in duality and to escape from duality. And that's the two brothers, right? The twins. It will continuously reincarnate until the first impulse is exhausted. The second impulse is the root of the mystic quest, the union of the liberated spirit with the great spirit. To the extent that the Kia can become one with chaos, it can extend its will and perception into the universe to accomplish magic. Between chaos and ordinary matter, and between Kia and the mind, there exists a realm of half-formed substance called ether. It is dualistic matter, but of a very tenuous, probabilistic nature. It consists of all the possibilities which chaos throws out, which have not yet become solid realities. It is the medium by which the non-existent chaos translates itself into real effects. It forms a sort of backdrop out of which real events and real thoughts materialize. Because etheric events are only partially evolved into dualistic existence, they may not have a precise location. Now we're going to move to gnosis. Altered states of consciousness are the key to magical powers. The particular state of mind required has a name in every tradition. No mind, right? And in the Tao, it talks about, not Tao, right? Stopping the internal dialogue, passing through the eye of the needle, ain or nothing, samadhi, or one-pointedness. In this book, it will be known as gnosis. It is an extension of the magical trance by other means. Methods of achieving gnosis can be divided into the two types. In the inhibitory mode, the mind is progressively silenced until only a single object of concentration remains. In the excitatory mode, the mind is raised to a very high pitch of excitement while concentration on the objective is maintained. Strong stimulation eventually elicits a reflex inhibition and paralyzes all but most central function, the object of concentration. Thus, strong inhibition and strong excitation end up creating the same effect, the one-pointed consciousness, or gnosis. Neurophysiology has finally stumbled on what magicians have known by experience for millennia. As a great master once observed, there are two methods of becoming God, the upright or the averse. Let the mind become as a flame or a pool of still water. It is during these moments of single-pointed concentration or gnosis that beliefs can be implanted for magic, and the life force induced to manifest. Table 1 on page 33 shows a number of methods that can be used to attain it. The death posture is a feint at death to achieve an utter negation of thought. It can take many forms, ranging from the simple not thinking exercise up to complex rituals. At a distance of about 2 feet and stare fixedly at the image of one's eyes in the mirror with an unblinking corpse-like gaze. The effort required to keep an absolute, unwavering image will of itself silence the mind after a while. And you can see the image here. Pretty fucking interesting. And it's showing you the physiological gnosis. This is the different mode, inhibitory modes or excitatory modes: sexual excitation, magical trance, emotional arousal, praying and torture, dancing, chanting, drumming, gazing, walking, drugs, sensory deprivation, right? These are all different methods. And we're going to jump over here to the Order of the Golden Dawn. And we might look a little bit at the handbook before we wrap it up. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, remember the son of the dawn, right? Prometheus, the light bearer, right? The gold having to do with alchemy, the alchemy turning the iron, which is Saturn, the physical, into gold, right? The carnal into gold, spiritual gold. Or the Rosicrucians, the rose and the cross, right? These are all different methods, just like the Knights Templars practiced into this initiation through mysticism, to this kind of Kabbalistic type of magic using sigils and all of this. We're just kind of hitting the basics here. The Hermetic order, and remember, Hermes or hermetics means to be sealed. Occulted, right, is hidden. Hermes, sealed. The Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn issued its own account of history. It claimed to be a hermetic society whose members are taught the principles of occult science and the magic of Hermes. During the early part of last century, several prominent adepti and chiefs of the order in France and England died, and their deaths caused temporary dormant condition of temple work. It goes on to state that these adepts received indeed and have handed down to us their doctrine and system of theosophy and hermetic science in the higher alchemy from a long series of practical investigators whose origin is traced to the Fratres Rosicrucius of Germany, which in association was founded by one Christian Rosenkreutz about the year 1398 AD, and that's a pen name, Christian Rosenkreutz. Or Rosencross, right? And we know the Bavarian Illuminati as well. The Rosicrucian revival of mysticism was but a new development of the vastly older wisdom of the Kabbalistic rabbis of that very ancient secret knowledge. The magic of the Egyptians, in which the Hebrew Pentateuch tells you that Moses, the founder of the Jewish system, was learned. That is, in which he had been initiated. And this goes to the Essenes and all of this, right? Joseph, Seth, right? Set, and Mary, right? From his mom to Mary Magdalene, right? These are all thought to be initiates of the mysteries, right? The Essenes, Hermes, Hermetic Order, Socrates, Pythagorean, right? And it all goes back to the Great Pyramids, right? And the Egyptian, the Golden Dawn and Hermetics, right? These are the sacred sciences that have been taught, the mystery schools that have been taught throughout the years to keep this going. It's occulted knowledge, and it's come out in many forms. Knight Templars, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, all of it, right? Now, this is the Golden Dawn and the initiation of the beginning of this process, right? Trusting the process. This is the secret. This is the Golden Dawn historical claim. Many have questioned its veracity. That really does not concern us at this moment. Perhaps by far the best and most objective account in history, short and concise, was written by Aleister Crowley and Libre Vero-Calze. The first few paragraphs are so well stated as to warrant a quotation here. And I believe it's the Book of Lies or the Book of the Law. Some years ago, a number of a cipher, MSS, were discovered and deciphered by certain students. They attracted much attention as they purported to derive from the Rosicrucians. You will readily understand that the genuineness of the claim matters no whit, such literature being judged by itself, not by reputed sources. Among the MSS was one which gave the address of a certain person in Germany, who is known to us as SDA. Those who discovered the ciphers wrote to SDA, and in accordance with instructions received in order, was found in which a semi-secret manner. After some time, SDA died. Further requests for help were met with a prompt refusal from the colleagues. It was written by one of them that the scheme had always been to regard with disapproval. But since the absolute rule of the adepts is never to interfere with judgments of any person whomsoever, how much more than one of themselves, and that one most highly revered. They had refrained from active opposition. The adept who wrote this added that the order had already quite enough knowledge to enable it or its members to formulate a magical link with the adepts. Shortly after this, one called SRMD announced that he had formulated such a link, and that he himself and 2 others was to govern the order. There is another source of historical material, a small pamphlet written by Dr. W. W. Westcott, in which he stated in 1887, a continental Rosicrucian adept, the Isis Urania Temple of Hermetic Students of the Golden Dawn, was formed to give instruction on the medieval occult sciences. Freighters, MEW with SA and SRMD became the chiefs, and the latter wrote the rituals in modern English from old Rosicrucian manuscripts, supplemented by his own literary researches. The several statements he gave, beginning Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn since its inception in the last quarter of the 19th century, has exerted far greater influence on the growth and dissemination of practical occult information and knowledge that can be realized by most present-day students. And we're going to go here. This is the study guide. It's called Chapter 23, right, of the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis. And this is from the Minerval to the 7th degree, right? Under the seal of obligation of nothing in particular. And it shows you, right, what this is recommended for study. It's got all of the different books that are recommended for study. Let me see if I can drop this in the chat for you guys. Thank you, Cosmic Blue, for the super chat also, by the way. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Now, we're going to go through this. The Minerval degree represents the thing about Minerva, the owl, right? Bavarian Illuminati, and what we see taking place in the Redwood Forest in California at Bohemian Grove, right? And this is Minerval element Earth, chakras, Ajna, Muhadra, which is command and root support. The ego is attracted to the solar system. The Minerval degree represents the attraction of a wandering god or ego within the solar system. I begin by showing the object of the pure soul, one individual and eternal, in determining to formulate itself consciously, or, as I may say, to understand itself. The Confessions of Aleister Crowley. And there's recommended for memorizing, supplementary reading, recommended practices, right? Meditating over the first paradox of philosophy. Review the Minerval lecture with your initiator if necessary. Evaluate the meaning of do what thou wilt in terms of the principle. Attend and participate in Gnostic Mass, central ceremony of OTO's public and private celebration. I don't know if we can pull. Right here, see, so you can pull the Gnostic Mass. All of the furnishings of the temple. In the east, that is, in the direction of Boleskine, which is situated on the southeastern shore of Loch Ness in Scotland, 2 miles east of Foyers in the shrine of High Altar. Its dimensions should be 7 feet in length, 3 feet in breadth, 44 inches in height. It should be covered with a crimson altar cloth on which may be embroidered flor duris in gold and sunblaze and other suitable emblems. And it's showing you, right, the numbers, right? 7 feet in length, 3 feet in breadth, 44, 7, 3, 44, right? This is numerology. This is how it works, right? And notice it's in the east to different cardinal directions and on different ley lines and temples that have been created. And this is showing you the officers, the ceremony of the introit, the priestess in the tomb with the lance erect with both hands, showing you the whole ritual here. Very interesting. We're going to go back to this though. Now, required for advancement. And meditate on the tarot trumps the star, the universe, the priestess, the fool in terms of your initiation. So meditate on tarot cards. The star, the priestess, and the fool. Administratively, the Minerval, and remember the fool has the white rose, right, and in tan. The star, Aquarius, right, or Uranian, and the high priestess, okay? Administratively, the Minerval is an initiate member of the Ordo Templi Orientis. Magically, the Minerval is a welcome guest of the order, rather than a full member. A Minerval cannot head a camp or sponsor another initiate. The Minerval may leave the order at any time for any reason. Full membership in the order begins with the first degree, wherein a magical bond of fraternity is established between the order and the initiate, which will last for the duration of the initiate's life. And right, these are the different degrees as well. In an administrative sense, the first degree member may resign from OTO, but the magical link established in the first degree initiation cannot be broken during the initiate's lifetime. Therefore, the choice to proceed in the first degree should be considered carefully, and that magical link has a spiritual connectedness, right? Being on that level of awareness, right? Illumination, right? You're connected to everybody else. There are 3 formal requirements for admission to the first degree. The candidate must accept Liber Alva Legis sub figura CCXX, also known as the Book of the Law, without wishing to make changes in it. The candidate must acknowledge the necessity for timely payment of dues and fees. The candidate must consider or consent to the binding arbitration of the Areopagus of OTO and resolving disputes between members of OTO. And it's binding, spiritual bound. Right, and bind you to a law, an order, an oath. That's why you swear on oaths. And here you go. The will, the magical dialogue to be performed before a meal. The duty. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that, and no other shall say nay. For pure will, unassaged with purpose, delivered from lust to result, is every way perfect. Love is the law, love under will. Every man and every woman is a star. And remember, if you're God, do what thou wilt, so it's do your will. There's no other law but do your will because you're God, right? In this belief, and it's saying you have no other right but to do your will, nobody else's. You don't infringe on anyone or anything else. And it's pure will, delivered of lust of result, wanting no result, right? We were just talking about this in the different practices. In every way it's perfect. Duty to yourself. Find yourself to be the center of your own universe. I am the flame that burns in every heart of man and in the core of every star. Right, that illuminated fire, you're the divine spark. Explore the nature of power of your own being. This includes everything which is or can be for you, and you must accept everything exactly as it is in itself. It's perfected the way that it is. As one of the factors which go to make up your true self, this true self thus ultimately includes all things, however, because you're one of a total interconnected creation. So everything is in perfection and in alignment. Discovery is initiation, or the traveling inwards, and its nature is to move continually. It must be understood not as static, but as dynamic. Not as a noun, but as a verb. It's action, right? It's taking action. Faith without works is dead. And these are the esoteric meanings, what they're actually talking about. Right? When God gives all things to you, it's the power over all things. Solomon, the wisest man, who used the demons to build his temple. This is the holy temple. New Jerusalem, right? The eye of the Lord, the shadow of the Almighty. You're under his feathers. The Minerval, or the carnal, right? The lower, the greater, the lesser, the Canaanite, the dog star, Lucifer, the Christ, the Christos, the anointing, right? These things all have, in your Bible, Jesus was 33, 40 years in the desert. Do you see? It's always the same thing. Mount Sinai, Sin AI, right? Yahweh, if you look at that in Arabic, it's AUAI. It's gold and artificial intelligence, right? We see computers and all of that, emojis, and these are arcane symbols. Nothing new under the sun, man. All right. Develop and do harmony in proportion every faculty which you possess. Wisdom says, be strong, but exceed. Be strong, O man. Lust. Enjoy all things of sense and rapture. Fear not that any god shall deny thee for this. Contemplate your own nature. Consider every element thereof both separately and in relation to all the rest, as to judge accurately the true purpose of the totality of your being. Find the formula of this purpose or true will. This true self, true Must accept everything exactly as it is. Hold on. Let me go back here. Find the formula of this purpose or true will in an expression as simple as possible. Learn to understand clearly how best to manipulate the energies which you control to obtain the results most favorable to it from its relation with the part of the universe which you do not yet control. Extend the dominion of your consciousness and its control of all forces alien to it to the utmost. Extend the dominion of your consciousness. Populate all dimensions. Right? It's about making yourself populated into everything. Do this by ever stronger and more skillful application of your faculties to the finer, clearer, fuller, and more accurate perception, to the better understanding, the more wisely ordered government of that external universe. Never permit the thought or will of any other being to interfere with your own. Be constantly vigilant to resent and on the alert to resist with unvanquishable ardor or vehemence of passion unquenchable every attempt of any other being to influence you otherwise and by contributing new facts to your experience of the universe or by assisting you to reach a higher synthesis of truth by the mode of passionate fusion. Do not repress or restrict any true instinct of your nature, but devote all in perfection to the sole service of your one true will. Be goodly, therefore. The word of sin is restriction, O man. Refuse not thy wife, if she will. O lover, if thou wilt, depart. There is no bond that can unite the divided but love. All else is a curse. Accursed, be it to the aeons hell. So with they all thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that, and no other shall say nay. For pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered from the lust of result, is every way perfect. Ye shall gather goods of store of women and spices. Ye shall wear rich jewels. Ye shall exceed the nations of the earth in splendor and pride. But always in the love of me, and so shall ye come to my joy. Rejoice. Remember all ye that existence is pure joy, that the sorrows are but as shadows, they pass and are done, but there is that which remains. But ye, O my people, rise up and awake. Let the rituals be rightly performed with joy and beauty, a feast for fire and a feast for water, a feast for life and greater feast for death, a feast every day in your hearts in the joy of my rapture, a feast every night unto new, in the pleasure of uttermost delight. Aye, feast, rejoice. There is no dread hereafter. There is the disillusion and eternal ecstasy in the kisses of new. Now rejoice. Now come in our splendor and rapture. Come in our passionate peace and right sweet words for the kings. Thrill with the joy of life and death, and thy death shall be lovely. Whoso seeth, it shall be glad. Thy death shall be the seal of the promise of our age-long love. Come, lift up thine heart and rejoice. Is a God to live and a dog? No, but the highest are of us. They shall rejoice, our chosen. Who sorroweth is not of us. Beauty and strength, leaping laughter and delicious languor, force and fire are of us. And your duty to other individual men and women. Love is the law, love under will. As brothers fight ye. If he be a king, thou cannot hurt him. Beware lest any forced another, king against king. Seek, if you so will, to enlighten another when need arises. Worship all. Every man and every woman is a star. Mercy left to be off. Damn them who pity. Your duty to mankind. Establish the law of Thelema as the sole basis of conduct. The word of sin is restriction. Your duty to other things. Apply the law of Thelema to all problems of fitness, use, and development. And then he goes on to the temple guidelines, right? Which we're going to get a lot more into this in the next one. We're going to look more into the temples and all of this. But I do want to, read, Hiram Abiff. Right? And this is from Freemasonry. This is from the Encyclopedia of Secret Signs and Symbols. The legend of Hiram Abiff as a central core and inspiration for Freemasons. Hiram was a master mason who specialized in metalwork and was one of the prime designers of the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. Here is the legend. And remember, Hiram Abiff, Hi-Ram, right? Or Mira, right? If you do it in reverse, invert it. Ab, like Abba, right? If, take that in reverse, Phi, right? Hiram Abiff, this is the master mason who specialized in metalwork, right? Alchemy, okay? And to one of the designers of the Temple of Solomon, which is the temple of demons to create the temple in Jerusalem, right? New Jerusalem, the holy city. After the temple was completed, 3 of the other workers decided that they wanted to extract the secrets from Hiram that would qualify them to be master masons. They positioned themselves at the doors of the temple and individually demanded to know these secrets. Hiram refused each one in turn, telling them that the knowledge they desired could be gained only by experience. The 3 turned on Hiram and killed him. One struck a blow to his throat with the rule. The next hit him on the chest with an iron, measuring square. And the third finished the job by hitting him on the forehead with a hammer. Full of remorse for the crime they quickly realized with a fruitless murder, the 3 ruffians, as they came to be called, buried Hiram and placed an acacia tree over his grave. However, although Hiram was effectively dead, his memory lives on, and so effectively he is reborn. The initiation of the grade of Master Mason reenacts the ritual of the death of Hiram, as there are any hard and fast rules which apply to the symbolism inherent within Freemasonry, right? It's a death and rebirth process, right? Death of the ego. The 3 blows symbolize the 3 different kinds of death. The death of the body, the blow to the throat, the death of the feelings, the strike on the chest, and the death of the mind, the blow to the forehead. And these are also chakras as well. Thus, the would-be Master Mason leaves his old self behind, the initiatory process symbolizing his rebirth into the higher moral values that were held by Hiram of integrity, knowledge, and detachment. In other words, the Mason is reborn as a better individual, having risen above the ignorance, hypocrisy, and envy personalized by his murders. Right? And the legend of Hiram Abiff is key, right? Because this is how you'll see a lot of Masons answer each other, right? As Hiram Abiff, asking for Hiram Abiff, and it's because of this legend. And notice he's hitting on the hammer of creation. We'll get into the symbolism of all of this as we go through this series. But what I think it's important for people to understand, that at the end of the day, and I feel like I've shown a lot tonight, and you should be able to pick up on a lot of this. This is why I do tarot videos, right? You can look at your sun, your moon, and your rising, right? And see what's being divined based on the current astrology out of the tarot cards. This is why I do astrology videos on the new and the full moons, right? So you can do your moon manifestations based on this. And this is why we look at the news and the media and the conspiracies, right? So we can use that critical thinking, right? And not allow ourselves to be tugged or pulled to one polarity or the other, or divided against ourselves, right? By this system of propaganda trying to get us to pick a side, you know? And we use these spiritual principles, these metaphysical principles, these sacred sciences to understand the reality from a scientific perspective. That way we can use it with practical knowledge, use it in a practical way, be intentional about the way we go about our lives, learn how it all truly works, how to be at the right place to meet the right frequency and to attract the right type of energy, so we create the reality we want to create, not the one that the elites or those that are oppressing most of us are trying to create for us. Now, I hope you guys have enjoyed part 1. Like I said, we're going to go way deeper in part 2. It's going to be awesome. I do hope everybody will check out our recent videos. Please consider donating and supporting to the channel. I'm completely viewer powered. This is how I keep the channel going. The best ways to donate is PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. You can do it through Facebook Messenger Pay. You can get a Facebook or a YouTube subscription. You can also join us over on Patreon. All of this, everybody who donates and supports gets access to our private Dropbox. It's hundreds of hours of uncensored shows and videos that are not on the public platforms. A lot of stuff we've gotten strikes on. Some of it you can find on BitChute and Rumble, so go check that out up there for free. This is, we're going to be bringing back Unveiling the Mysteries, all these different series. I got so much stuff coming down the pipe, and it's like, we're going to, it's going to be amazing. The things that are coming from this channel, and I got great guests that are going to be coming up as well. So I ask all of you, help me out, that way I can keep it all going. Donate, support. I would love to start reaching the monthly goal again and start trying to reach lots and lots of people, make our community grow big. Join us over on Discord twice a month. We do private shows there for that Dropbox, the private playlist. Book your own personal tarot reading. They're great. They're $50. It's cheap. It's like an hour, and you get real answers to a lot of the questions you have. You can do that by emailing the realbestdampodcast@gmail.com and put tarot. If you want to be a guest or sponsorship or anything like that, email as well. Make sure to subscribe on this channel, the backups, on all the other platforms. The links are in the description. Follow me Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. And guys, make sure to hit the like, give us a thumbs up, leave comments after the video's over. It really helps with the algorithms, and share this link. Share it to your Facebook groups, your social medias, all over. And make sure to subscribe and click all on the notifications bell. That way you get all of our notifications. Check out our tarot, our astrology, our conspiracy, our news, and make sure to check out part 2 of this series. It's going to be on.